Hi everyone, my name is Beautiful and this is Black Beautiful and Becoming. Hi everyone, my name is Beautiful. This is your podcast for everything holistic health. So that is from mental to spiritual, physical to financial. We'll be discussing everything right here in this podcast, and hence it's called Black Beautiful and Becoming. So we're going to start the podcast with two facts. One is going to be a general fact about me so that you guys can get to know me a bit better. And then the second one is going to be a podcast fact, something about the podcast, or something about why I started Black Beautiful and Becoming, so that you guys understand and relate to why this podcast is so important for yourself, and also why I decided to do it. So with a fun fact about me is that my place or my apartment, mostly my room, is full of sticky notes. I'm a sticky notes girly. My wardrobe has sticky notes, my mirror has sticky notes, my headboard has sticky notes. I'm a sticky note girly. So I know people don't invite people to their houses because of different things. For me, it's I don't want you to be reading through my sticky notes. I'm a quote collector. I write things on paper. So that's a fun fact about me. A fun fact about Black Beautiful and Becoming. I was younger, I didn't really have the space where I could communicate or talk or have somebody to advise me on how to do this corporate thing or just to do life in general, And I got some of that information, most of that information from people, whether it was mentors or YouTube podcasts or just people in general. And I wanted to have a place, not just for you, obviously, as the listener, but also for my kids to be able to get a safe place where the information is just given, wisdom is just given. Solomon says that a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. He leaves a playbook. And I just wanted to do that for my kids and for my children's children. I need to leave them knowledge on how to keep that worth, or to keep that wealth that you leave them, how to keep the money that you leave them, how to continuously have good friendships, how to be holistic. I think a playbook is very important, and that's the reason why I started the podcast. So if you follow my blogs, then you'll know today's topic. Today's topic is about representation and how important representation still is in this modern time. Yes, we've got people like Martin Luther King, we've got people like Nelson Mandela, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, who played a very important and crucial part in us having the freedom that we have. But right now, it's a bit harder for us to really put a pin on what we're trying to do, and to be very active about, or be activist about what we actually believe in, because we believe in so many different things. We're not just fighting for one cause like they did. Representation can be described as a point of reference, right? Barack Obama being the first Black president of America. And this is something that happened just a couple of years back. It's not even 20 years back. It's really, really close by. That opened doors for a lot of Black people to see themselves in the political space, and that having the ability to become Black leaders of not just any country, America, the world's largest economical hub, and being president and a leader of that. Another point of reference, one which I'm going to speak a lot about, especially today, is mostly because it is Black Beautiful and Becoming, firstly. Secondly, it's because I am a woman. My point of reference will always be from a point of a woman. I hope that will grow. But today we're going to really speak more in the beauty industry, or having representation in the beauty industry is so important, because being in that kind of industry, it allows you to shape how young people, young women especially, get to view themselves, and how they get to view themselves in the sense of them being beautiful. Alright, we're gonna start off with Viola Davis. So we all know Viola Davis. I think most of us know her from a series that she did. So when you read Viola Davis's book, Finding Me, you get to really get into why she's such an advocate for being enough, being worthy, and why she decided to take the lead role in How to Get Away with Murder. And not just that, but her being with a white husband, being married to a white husband. Growing up, being the only black child in most of my settings, white meant pureness, it meant superiority, it meant the ultimate title. So her being with a white man kind of has that thing of, well, you could also get this. And us seeing her as the lead character, she says that she did that purposely. She really did fight for that role. And her being with a white man, being married to a white man, kind of opened doors. It opens doors. I think as a black woman, mostly, yes, I think mostly as a black woman, there's certain things you believe that you are able to do and certain things you aren't able to do. I think if you read more about Viola Davis and Finding Me, you get to really understand what being with a white person on TV actually means to her. I share the same sentiments because a lot of the time when I read that book, I was crying in tears because a lot of what she was speaking about is very close to the type of way I grew up. So one thing about Viola Davis is that she's always advocating that we are enough and that she's enough and that she's worthy. I think Viola Davis does a really good job of representation. Also, Viola Davis is not our standard portrayal of beauty. She is really dark skinned. She's a bit more African in her sense of how she looks. She's dark skinned. She usually wears her natural hair. What I'm trying to say is that her representation of who she is and how she looks is so vital, and I think she does that very intently. She's very intentful about how she looks and her being dark skinned. I mean, if you are in that industry or in the entertainment industry, you tend to want to move towards what everybody likes, but she really hasn't done that. She's been herself, and you get to know why she fights so hard for black people when she gets to these settings. One thing about Viola Davis is that whether she's there for an interview or she's just passing by and somebody asks her a question, she will always advocate for black self-love. And not just that, she will speak to the younger version of who she is, the younger version of the person who comes from where she comes from. And that is very important. Representation is so important, and not just representation, but representation and being very specific to who you are speaking to. And that's what I want to talk about, especially today. It's not just leading, but leading with purpose. Leading with purpose is extremely important. So in the 1960s, we're introduced to Daniela Luna. She becomes the first black woman to appear on British Vogue. But it's so strategic how they put her. Before, they first put her as a cartoon on the page, on the cover of British Vogue. Then later she's put as herself, because at that time, seeing black people in magazines was not something that was normal or something that happens all the time. Whilst we're still fighting the fight today, and hence I always say that Caucasian people or white people will never really understand how much apartheid has affected the black person and their self-worth until they become black people. The fact that we're still fighting about blackness and how dark you are, and darkness is actually being pretty, if that is still a challenge right now, it still means that the traces of racism are still something very real, right? So Daniela Luna becomes the first supermodel to grace the cover of British Vogue. That became a huge turning point for black people, but it also started to challenge the scenario of black people appearing in covers. it took a while before another black person appeared, because white people unsubscribed to Vogue. They protested, they fought against it. How were black people taking the covers of British Vogue? And even then, even it couldn't be two black people in one setting. You know, it couldn't just be black people. It had to be black people, one black person with 10 white people. I'm trying to tell you how far this thing has gone, and how her being the cover was a representation to people like Naomi Campbell, to people like Tyra Banks, and even more, to bring it home, to people like Abo Zosbini, to people like Abo Shudufatso. I'm going to bring it home also and say that even Zosbini having her natural hair, as much as black people were taking the cover and participating in Mrs. SA or in Mrs. South Africa, none of them really could be themselves. It was, you had to have the nails, you had to have makeup, you have to have your hair relaxed or in extensions, so that you are closer to looking like the white woman that actually appeared on these places or on these platforms. Right, but Zosbini really challenged the status quo at that time. Instead of her saying, let me have an extension, let me have extensions, let me have nails, okay, nails I think she did do, but have extensions, she went with her natural hair. Not just natural hair, but natural short hair. You see, having natural hair is a challenge. But having natural short hair is even challenging, because you are further than you are further than what white people deem as beautiful. Also, you are further than what black people deem as really pretty. It's either you are white or you're black, and if you're black, you must be very natural with long, big hair, you know. But for you to be with short hair is really you really challenging the status quo. And she really did that with her going to those stages with her short hair. We even saw in that year that a lot of black people were embracing having short hair. A lot of people cut their hair. A lot of people became bald. A lot of people just took that with them. So as much as she was just challenging that, even the portrayal of black people with short hair in the entertainment industry changed. Now they were appearing in those settings. Now we saw people on TV with their natural hair. Now we saw representations of other people who did not necessarily fit the stereotype of being black but looking very close to white. As much as she did that, a bigger thing that she did that is unnoticeable is her influence on Shudufatso Masina. I hope I'm saying this right. Masida is her influence on Shudufatso Masida. So Shudufatso is a young girl who is from Limpopo, who decided to be in South Africa. You know, and like I want to say, she comes from a very, very underprivileged village in Limpopo. So her seeing Zosbini Tunzi gave her a point of reference, gave her a representation of, hey, she's black, she has her short hair, she's not far from what looks like me. Yes, she's far, but she's not that far from what looks like me. And then the next year she enters Miss SA, and she also wins. But her even more challenging the status quo even more. She goes in with her bald head. I mean, there's this scenario that comes with being black, or just comes with being a woman, that your hair is your beauty, you know. And for you not to have hair, to listen to what I'm saying to you. Look at me, and I am beautiful, and I'm still beautiful in how I look. But don't look at me with, I have to fit into what you deem as beautiful, what you deem as something that looks important to you. Look at me and listen to what I'm saying, and deem me as beautiful because of everything that I am bringing to you, exactly the way that I am. She also really challenged how we view beauty. I mean, being Miss South Africa with no hair, it's really pushing it, and she really did a really good job big ups to her. She even has a book, and she's an author of a children's book, which is also changing how we see it. Because honestly, books, or being a woman and being an author of a book, really did seem as though it was something for white people because they were more educated, they could write better, that's what we assumed. But her doing that even challenges really what we think about the things that we're able to do. All these women that I've just represented are not just women, but they're women who intentionally were the driving factors of change. As much as we don't see it, yes, we will be like, okay, but they are actively in their rights even today, still fighting. They're activists of change, of how we tend to view ourselves, how we tend to view mental health, how we tend to view our self-worth, how we tend to view salaries, and how we're supposed to earn. These are women who are actively doing and making change right now. Yes, they may not be above Nelson Mandela, but they are actively doing that. I mean, Viola Davis takes a moment to go and say, hey, you are enough. Hey, don't just get into marriage knowing who you are, and we don't necessarily get those type of people usually anymore, and we still getting those type of people. What I'm trying to say is the importance of representation. There's so many people right now who are in very underprivileged circumstances who just need one person to be like, hey, I was able to do it. Hey, this is the blueprint of how you do this. Hey, I'm speaking to the younger version of myself. Hey, do this. Hey, think about it this way. You can come represent yourself properly. You can actually get into rooms. And what I'm trying to say is that we need to start occupying positions of power with purpose. Because what we are actively doing is we are challenging the status quo of what it means to be at certain places, what it means to have certain things, what it means to be in the forefront of making change. You're not just making change for yourself, but you're making changes for the people who are coming after you. What you are intentively doing is going out of the lift on the top floor and pressing the bottom button. You are pressing the 0 button, saying, hey, go back to the basement and get somebody there. Right? And that's what we need to do. We need not just to occupy spaces, Bazalwane. We need to occupy spaces with the intent of making a change. Because one thing I do believe is that if I make the little changes that I can, and somebody else does the same, and somebody else does the same, and as women we do the same, and as men we do the same, imagine how much change there would be if we look back. I remember when I was staying in the townships, there was this girl, her name was Bridget, I'm not sure about her surname, but she used to be an active runner. Like running, guys, running in the townships is something unheard of. People don't run in the townships. Why are you running? Where are you running to? But this girl used to be an active runner. I remember I joined her for like 3 or 4 weeks of her just running. She would just run, and I'd be like, why are you running? For me, it really was like, hey, this is still possible. And what we usually do, as especially Black people from the township, when things get good, we tend to move. And I get that, and I understand that, because obviously a change of scenario also helps you to change the type of person that you are. But also, it takes away the point of reference for someone else. It also takes away the point of reference for the girl living next door. Also, I think it's really important to understand that when you're doing things, you're not just doing them for you. You are also doing them for the person next to you, the person after you, the person next door you, the child that's coming after you, your children, their children's children. They need to be able to look at you and be like, this was a good person. This person really tried. I'm not saying things are not going to be difficult, right? But we need points of references, especially in our Black communities, especially in our Black underprivileged communities. Yes, children can turn on the radio and see, but it makes it even better if your brother is the lawyer. It makes it even better if the motivational speaker is your sister. It gives you more power to be able to do things than for you to listen to the radio or for you to watch TV like Shudu did and was able to see Uzozibini, or the way I do, and I'm able to see Viola. But imagine if Viola was my sister. Like, it changes how you are able to reach things. We need to make it easy or reachable to the people who feel like it's unreachable, because from the communities that we come from, guys, some things are just unreachable, and you just saying it is kind of being like you are arrogant. Imagine just saying, I'm not going to stay in an abusive relationship. It's sounding as though it's arrogant, and the only person you've ever seen who left a toxic relationship with somebody on TV. It becomes a bit too far-fetched compared to the person who left the relationship being my next door neighbor, who now has a job, who now is able to take care of their kids. What I'm trying to say is it's really important for us to not make the representation something too far-fetched. It needs to be realistic, and it needs to be very closer from home. So when you have an opportunity to drag somebody with you, not drag, but take somebody along with you, please do that. If you have the opportunity to have proteges, people who just want to apprentice, people who just want to follow you, get to understand how to do this better, mentees, do that. Anytime you're able to just give a word, give it. Anytime you're able to talk. Anytime you're able to write a book, write, because your story may not resonate with me, but it might resonate with somebody else who's in the exact same situation, but feeling like it's impossible. So that's it from me for today. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. I hope this podcast also just trying to show you the importance of representation in your immediate surroundings. But in the meantime, do like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok. That's it from me. Enjoy.